Oh, it's recording now? Who's doing the recording? You, Liz, or Eli?
Christy is.
Or Kristen is. Okay. So is that also going to record visually as well?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it does.
Well, that's the answer to your question, David.
Yep.
Yes, there is going to be audio. We just haven't started yet. We're waiting for a few more people to join us. Thank you, all of you, for being here, and we'll get started soon.
No audio here. Maybe type a question. Just
I can hear you guys talking.
yeah, but they're all on mute. I can hear you. Okay. Uh-oh. Yeah, they all should be able to hear us.
Okay, I think I'm going to introduce the team. Okay, so we can start and let people roll in. Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Schubert. I'm the Adult Program Coordinator at the Southington Public Library. I'd like to welcome you all tonight to our presentation. We had the Eastern Connecticut Paranormal Society come in and do an investigation of the library itself, which there happened to be some nice activity that was recorded. There's some findings that they're going to go over tonight. David, Bray, Ruby, Eli, Chris, they're all part of the team. They're going to introduce you to some findings that they found, and they're going to talk about just general paranormal investigation. So I'm going to turn it over to David. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for investigating again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you to the Southington Library and all the staff for having us. It was a good time, so we're going to talk about that tonight. So to everyone watching, we're actually going to, I think Christy's going to post a link to Dropbox in chat. So if you click that link, it's going to have our case reports, medium reports, empath reports, and all the audio bites that we caught evidence of. So you can download those and listen or read the report and kind of follow along. The evidence report in particular is kind of time-stamped, and we're going to kind of talk about each section of the library one at a time, so you can follow along with that. Eli, whenever you're ready, if you want to bring the, whoa. right. Okay, need to find Chris. There you are. Okay.
And hello, everybody. I'm Chris. Real quickly, our mission is simple: is to find the truth. You know, Eastern Connecticut Paranormal we're a group of investigators that have come together to find the truth through in-depth investigative techniques. E.C.P.S. relies on not one, but rather several approaches when studying paranormal claims. The team uses technical methods, formal logical approaches, and the use of spiritually gifted individuals to gather data and evidence of the paranormal. Our goal here at E.C.P.S. is to assist clients through validation and education of what experience they may be going through. It's not our goal to dramatize or sensationalize their experience, but again, to simply find the truth. To do this, Eastern Connecticut employs the education of its team members, but also various professionals in their respective fields, including but not limited to physicians, archaeologists, and psychologists.
Sorry, I was muted. Essentially, what all of this means is our approach is vastly different from those of the paranormal teams you may see on TV. If you read this slide, you'll see something called confirmation bias in there, which what that essentially means is that people like to look for evidence that already supports their pre-existing beliefs. So if you believe in ghosts or spirits and you go to a location and then you get some type of little audio blip or something, you're going to immediately jump to it has to be a ghost. And that's not how science works. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let the evidence lead you toward what the conclusion is and not the other way around. So each of us has our own specific niche that we do, our specific field of study. And we're going to kind of introduce ourselves individually now so you kind of know who we are and where we come from. So next.
Oh, there's me. Many of you probably have met us if you joined us with the presentation on the Barnes Museum and with the Southington Historic Society. But just to reiterate, I'm Chris. I'm a general contractor. My education is I have a master's in finance. I am a psychic medium. And again, without saying, my interest in the paranormal is the mediumship.
So that's me, looking longingly into the sky. I currently work as an orthopedic licensed massage therapist and an exercise physiologist. I kind of take pride in being the nerd of the team, I guess. I did do very well in school. I actually recently just applied to medical school. So I'm very interested in health and science and how all of that connects to the paranormal field. I am the lead investigator, which means I use that knowledge to debunk anything and everything I can. I'm very skeptical to saying anything is actually paranormal. It has to really kind of surprise me for me to say it is. And I'm also a psychic empath, which I kind of recently discovered, or accepted rather, 3 years ago or so. I can get into that. Please ask some empath questions later. I would love to talk about it. And my paranormal interest is actually demonology and the occult. So I guess I'm attracted to kind of the dark side of things. So that's me.
And that's me. I'm Ruby. I'm the team's photographer, and I also do a lot of the new client interviews. So maybe you've talked to me on the phone. I studied psychology in school, and I now work with the Decision Neuroscience Lab at Yale. Before that, I also spent many years working in the field of sensory biology, so I now have a special interest in understanding the neurophysiological underpinnings of how and why so many of us humans experience these unexplained phenomena.
And this is me. I'm the newest member of this group. I joined about a year ago. And I am both a communications manager at the UConn School of Engineering and also an adjunct professor of communications at CCSU and Eastern. And so my role is to really, help during the investigation, but also do the sort of historical research to put the claims with the actual history of the land or the building or the house that we're in. So, I often am doing digging into that to find, if the different evidence that we capture matches up with the history of the actual location that we're at.
There are 3 phases to our investigative process. We begin by interviewing each new client and researching their claims, and then we conduct a thorough on-site investigation, and depending on the case, we may need to do this several times. And then finally, we prepare a report of our findings and recommendations, and we present that information to the client. We do receive a lot of inquiries lately from all over the country. And so Eli and I kind of triage the incoming calls and assess severity following a detailed new client interview. And through the interview, Eli and I can kind of form a preliminary profile of both the case and the client, conduct necessary research to gather missing information that might be pertinent to the case, and arrange a time for an investigation. And that little footnote there at the bottom is pretty important. Eli and I conceal information about paranormal claims from David and Chris prior to the investigation, and that helps to eliminate any ambiguity about the source of any matching information that David and Chris may receive independently via their abilities.
And one thing to add to this whole process is this is the start of the process. So this is where we sort of siphon off legitimate claims versus potentially real claims. And so there's a very long sort of document that has been created over the years that we used to actually, screen people that come in and, choose the ones that seem the most legitimate. And that's done through several different things that we go through. So for this specific investigation in the Southington Public Library, there were several different claims. And like Ruby said, all of these claims were not known to Chris and David beforehand. And so some of the claims were a female voice that's heard on the mezzanine, and a scream was also heard from the upper offices. General feelings of being watched in the basement. The boiler room door seemingly unlocks on its own. Items are moved, rearranged, or knocked over in the children's section. And actually, the day of the investigation, when I was talking with some of the librarians there before we started our investigation, just the day before, there was a book knocked off the shelf that they had no explanation for. So that's pretty common. And then footsteps that are heard when no one's around. And so all these claims, came from several different employees at the Southington Public Library. And they were given to Ruby and I beforehand, and Chris and Dave were kept in the dark about it.
Well, I can kind of start here. Our essential investigation process starts with the most important thing of all, and that's that we get Dunkin' Donuts before I got my little gift card in the back over here. Chris has his coffee. It just keeps us awake. We're trying to secretly get a sponsorship, if you know anyone. But then first step is we get there and we do a meet and greet. So we actually met 2 of the staff members in the parking lot. And then I'll let Eli take it from here to talk about what he did inside. But Chris and I stayed outside, and then Chris went inside.
Yeah. So for this specific investigation, we met 2 librarians, or I met 2 librarians, outside, and then I went inside with the 2 librarians. And basically, what we asked them is just to reiterate all the claims and just to confirm all the claims. And give us a tour of, all of the hot spots, because we have all this stuff in writing, but it's good to visualize it so we know exactly where to put all of our equipment, such as the video cameras, and where the sort of activity is focused upon. So we're not wasting time during the actual investigation. So, once we did that, what we do is we sort of do a baseline reading with something called an EMF detector. And what EMF is electromagnetic field. And so normally, everything that's electronic, it, releases magnetivity into the environment. And so, if you put it up to, a cell phone or a laptop, or you put it up to any sort of electrical device, you could see on the actual device that it goes pretty high. So normally when you're not near any of those things, it shouldn't go off. So we try to find the hotspots throughout, or the unexplained hotspots throughout as we're going through. And then Chris actually did the photo and video walkthroughs. And the reason why we do that is so we know exactly at the beginning of the night where everything is. So if we're reviewing evidence, we can sort of certify that everything was in its place and not moved. And then we set up the equipment, we go lights out, and then we sort of get into the mindset of the investigation through some meditation and prayers. And then we just go into it. We start at the most active place usually. And then, we go from there usually. And then at the end of the night, we break everything down and, it's time to review the evidence.
Right. I want to say too, if anyone has any questions while we're talking about anything, feel free to type them in chat. And as long as it's directly related to what we're talking about, we can just answer it. So it's more like a conversation instead of us just talking at you for the next hour or so. But okay, so I'll let Chris start, but we started in the children's section.
This is where actually we started here, but we started in an office back, and that's where we started picking up, at least I believe both Dave and I were starting to pick up on the energy of who we were supposed to find there. And that's where I sensed the male spirit and the spirit of several children. Now, prior to when I did the presentations there, at that time, I still sensed not just the children. I mean, that's a common sense one. Okay, there could be many children around, at the library, but the fact that there was a woman, and we'll talk more about her throughout the night too, but the woman had children around her, and she had a goodie or a snack, candy, or a prize for these children. So that was the one of the children, the presence of the children that were around.
Yeah, and so for me, the children's section was kind of the most interesting part of the night. While Chris and Eli were sitting in one of the side offices over there, I was actually walking around with one of our infrared handheld camcorders, just trying to see if I could capture anything. And there's an employee desk right in the section. So I decided to just sit in the chair, just see if I could get anything. And there's like a staircase right behind the desk. And the whole time I could hear creaking, almost like footsteps. But of course, my first inkling is just it's the building making noises. So I didn't read too much into it, but I could feel like I was being watched from the stairs that kind of go up to the mezzanine. And I kind of just tuned in like little bit of a meditation, and the name Mark popped into my head. Now it's such a common name, so I was kind of like, I don't really know, I could just be pulling that out of thin air. But I kept the name in my head.
Well, initially we got both of us got the name of, began with the letter M.
Right.
And so.
Right. So then as I was sitting behind the desk, it was Mark that popped into my head. And I kind of kept it to myself for a little bit. And then I think it wasn't too much longer later, 10, 15 minutes later, I think I actually said it to Eli. I think I said the name. Yeah. And he did confirm that Mark actually was a former employee who worked in the children's section who passed away. So he was actually a good friend of two of the staff members who were present with us that night. So that was pretty interesting. And then objectively, looking back at the evidence later on, we did get intelligent audio responses, we believe, from Mark and from children. At one point, if you look at the picture on the slide, you see Chris sitting on the floor with a book. So I'll let him talk about that, but we got a direct response to that situation.
It was hysterical. So prior to me sitting down, I said, all right, children, gather around. I'm going to read you a story. And through the spirit box, in a child's voice, they said, in the dark, like, you're going to read it. It was priceless. It was hysterical. That would be what we call an intelligent response.
Yeah, I mean, it was like right after.
Yeah, and you'll be able to hear that.
Yep. So again, if you go to the Dropbox link, you can download that audio file where you can hear the child say in the dark. So that was interesting. And another thing that did happen to me, there's an employee desk between the children's section and kind of the main, I guess it's the front entrance. As I was walking by that a few times, I got the presence of a female spirit, and she was kind of like behind the desk working, filing things away. And I kind of just kept that in my head. And if we go to the next slide, where we moved to the main lobby, and I didn't really get too much here. This was more of a Chris area of the library, but I did get the presence of a female that I found out later. There was another former employee named Colleen who did work in the library. I'm not sure if it's her or not, but that's a possibility.
All right. Usually when I'm going on to an investigation, I will start gathering information prior to even arriving. And this happened to me on Friday, or the day before. We went on a Friday. So on Thursday, I got the impression that the custodian was interfering with the library staff. And when I met up with David at Dunkin' Donuts, I brought that to his attention. So when we got to the investigation and a male spirit introduced himself as Kurt, again, put it in my mind. And when we sat down with Billy and Lynn, we found out that the custodian that was not very favorable, his name was Kurt. Next slide. All right.
Yeah, if you want, yeah. So then we did get a response while we were in the main level. I believe it was Chris who asked, where should we go next? And we got a response that said the basement. So that's where we went next. Unfortunately, we didn't really get too much down here. The only thing I got was that when I originally walked down there, when I first entered the building, I think, again, I said to Eli, there was some kind of energy with the boiler room, or was something going on in there. And he did confirm that I guess there was a claim with the unlocking of the door. They'll lock it, and then when they come in the morning, it's unlocked or something like that. But that was all I got. But the door was locked, so we didn't really feel like having the staff members come all the way down, open it, let us go in there. There's a lot of mechanical equipment in there anyway, so it would have interfered with our equipment, so it kind of wasn't worth it. We did go in the staff room down there, and we tried a couple audio sessions, but didn't get too much of a response from anything really down there. Chris, I don't think you got much down there either, if I'm correct.
No, it was pretty quiet. So in theory, our theory is that when we do get a response to the questions, where should we go next? Sometimes it's the spirit's attempt to get us out of the area that we're in, and to go into an area where no activity is going on. And this case wasn't any different. Once we went back upstairs, we stumbled upon more experiences. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. So after that, we went up to the final area of the library, which was the mezzanine and the upper offices. There was actually a lot more offices than I thought there was, a lot of hidden rooms. But when I was up there, I think this is where we heard an audible thump, like a book or something fell. And it was so loud, we did catch it on audio. I believe it's in the folder on Dropbox. We looked around to see if anything actually fell, and we couldn't find anything. And everybody there heard it. It was that loud. I think I did ask too. I said, I feel like someone is being mimicked or mocked. Hearing voices, something like that. And one of the staff members did confirm that when they're working, they hear their names being called. And then when they go in the other room and ask, hey, did you, like, what do you want? Did you call my name? They're like, I didn't call you. But they swear that it matches their coworkers' voices. So I kind of picked up on that claim while I was up there for whatever reason.
And the male spirit, oh, can we go back one? The male spirit that I felt was there, again, we believe it was Mark. It started when we were down below in the children's area. I saw a tall figure, so we were assuming it was Mark, Mark's description, leaning over the mezzanine wall. Unfortunately, he didn't want his picture taken.
And one of the things about Mark as well that the two librarians told us was he often liked to be a jokester, and he would, play pranks on people from the mezzanine. So it would make sense that, his spirit was actually up there as well, which was also interesting.
So the last phase of the investigation, so once we're concluded and we upload the evidence, and then we have to go through it painstakingly so sometimes. We go to the next stage, which is what we call the reveal. This is where pretty much we give everything that we have to the client. So in this case, the library staff. They receive the full evidence, medium, and empath reports. So Chris will write a report from his perspective as a medium, and I'll write one from my perspective as an empath. And when you kind of read them back to back, it's interesting because you see the similarities between what we're getting psychically, but we don't communicate about mostly anything until after the reports. So it's kind of amazing how similar they can be. So when it comes to summarizing cases, we use what's called SOAP notes. It's actually something in the medical field that they use for session notes. And I'll get to that on the next slide, but we use it for the paranormal. And we also apply a grade to, or a haunted level to each case. And then usually we sit down with the client and we go through all of this. We explain what we found, what we didn't find, what we think is going on, and what to do from there. In this case, it's the presentation. So this is where the staff is actually getting the information. Go next. And this is the SOAP note thing that we do here. So subjective basically is anything that, any visions from Chris or I, or anyone really, if you feel cold or you feel like you're being watched, any paranormal claims that can't be proven or substantiated, it goes into the subjective category. It's hearsay. Objective is anything we actually validate with our equipment. So we did get intelligent spirit box responses. We did find a couple EVPs, and our psychic findings were validated by the staff members. Mark was a real person. The way we described him was confirmed. Kurt was a real person. The way Chris described him was confirmed. And then there were claims with children being around the library, running around, things like that. The assessment is what was the case? How bad was it? What's actually going on? And in this, we gave it a grade 2. So you can read what that says there. Basically means that there were intelligent responses and there is legitimate activity in the library. And the plan of action, well, the case is closed for now. There's nothing malevolent or malicious in the library at all. And so really we just can teach the staff how to coexist with spirits, with the spirits that are present. Really just educate them and empower them that if they're being bothered, they can put their foot down. Just like if your child was misbehaving and you have to lay the ground rules, it's pretty much the same thing.
All right, this is our grading system. It's grade 0 through 5. I'm going to just quickly go through them. Primarily grade 2 is what this case was, but after grade 0, there's nothing was found. Grade 1 is there's subjective paranormal activity that can't be debunked, and at least one piece of evidence has been collected. Grade 2, which is what we graded the library, is objective findings include evidence of an E.C.P. in direct relationship with a photo or video. The spirit box responds to a direct question, in the dark, and for example, and with relevance to the history of the residents or the occupants. Grade 3 gets a little bit more exciting. Objective findings include evidence of a manifestation, non-orbs, captured by photo or video, audible sounds or voices that can be heard by the human ear and are documented on audible devices. The library kind of teetered on grade 3 because we captured the loud thump, but again, things can fall. We just couldn't find what could have caused it, so that's why we kept it in the grade 2. Next slide, please. Grade 4, objective findings include evidence captured by a photo or video of partial or full body apparition. This can be shadow person or a mist with a clear definition of a body. This also includes apparitions that are caught in the reflections of windows or mirrors. There is evidence of aggressive behavior without inflicting harm. For example, there is clear documentation of pushing, tripping, or audible vulgar language that has been captured by EVPs or other audible devices. And there is evidence of objects moving. Grade 5, as I've said it many times before, this is the oh shit moment. This is when you have to leave, put a for sale sign in the yard and get out of the house. Objective findings include evidence of violent behavior. This includes slapping, scratching, biting, or other aggressive notion that leads to an injury. There is violent language and threats that are captured by human ear and documented with audible devices. There is evidence that objects being moved to cause harm, i.e. an object being thrown on a person. There is evidence of severe mood changes, religious artifacts being moved or damaged, and activity that cannot be explained that has demonic ideology. Unexplained markings are found in the home or on a person resembling possible demonic cause. This also includes unexplained appearances of blood. Sell the house.
All right, so now that pretty much sums up the Southington Library investigation. Again, all the evidence is in the Dropbox link. You can listen on your own time or tune us out and listen, whatever works. And you can read the reports to get more details on it. There is definitely paranormal activity in the library, nothing malicious or malevolent in any way. So definitely feel free to ask the spirits to give you a sign the next time you're in the library and see if something happens. Definitely would be worth your while, especially if you get someone to come forward. So now we're going to start taking some questions. These could be anything paranormal related. We wrote some topics here for you just to give you an idea because it's such a broad field.
Betty just asked a question. If you saw it in chat.
Yeah, Christy actually asked one first. So let's.
Did she? I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
So she says, what is the highest grade you have experienced?
That was Betty, I thought.
That was Christy. Either way.
Either way, you're right.
The highest grade we've experienced, I would say, is a grade 4, which was Captain Grant's Inn, which is a bed and breakfast in Preston, Connecticut. We actually rented out the entire B&B. We had 2-3 investigators in each room, and we investigated till like 5:30 in the morning. We caught a full body apparition in a picture. I caught the apparition of of several cats. You can actually see the cat's eyes moving underneath a kitchen table or a dining room table. It was a pretty active place, so definitely recommended to check out. Again, nothing malevolent or malicious there. It's a beautiful B&B, but it was definitely highly active. And then Brady asks, how long has the library been experiencing activity? Good question.
Eli, do you know?
I don't think that the two librarians that we worked with actually said, but I think for them at least, the activity that had been happening for the past few years. So I believe Mark died like 10 plus years ago, they were saying, but it was only in the most recent years, like 2 or 3 years, where they actually started to experience, their name being said, or one of the librarians actually felt the presence of Mark when she was having lunch in the staff room. So there was a couch in there. There still is a couch in there. And she felt his presence on the couch, which he would often do in life. He would sit down there on the couch with her in the staff room, and they would have chats.
Could this activity be related to the fact that they are redoing or rebuilding this library?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do find cases where renovations, we just had one in Canterbury actually, where the renovations were ramping up the activity significantly. Again, there's really only theories in this field as to why that actually is. I guess if there was a door somewhere and you were used to walking through it in life and all of a sudden there's a wall there, you'd probably get pretty upset, to put it lightly. So definitely in terms of Mark and Kurt, Mark is definitely kind of a spirit guide for some of the staff members there. He's watching over them. He's still joking around with them, visiting, making sure they're okay. I would say he's probably the strongest presence in the library. Quick comment from a library staff member. The day I heard the "In the Dark" clip knocking on doors and from behind closets and children's section was heard by 3 of us in different locations. Oh, wow. Okay.
So the mystery continues.
Yeah. So
and
still activity going on.
it could be Mark, it could be Kurt, it could be the children.
Right.
And
the children, I don't know if we've mentioned it, the children are not from the library necessarily. They're probably from the land.
I believe they belonged to the school prior to when it was, before it was the library, there was a school there.
Yeah, the land itself, from what the librarians told me, had many different lives. So the library has only been there for a couple decades, I believe. But before that, there was other buildings, including a school on that property. So it makes sense that there would be children's spirits there, in addition to maybe children's spirits from the library itself.
Right. Built in 1974. The most recent use before that was a gas station. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And prior to the gas station was the school, correct?
I think that's what they were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know the Historical Society was also something else before, which is right next door. Still hearing my name whispered in my left ear and like playing with the walkie-talkies.
Mm.
It's the library.
Interesting.
All right. So we need more research. Describe the psychic phenomena you have experienced in general with the Southington Library, or it's a very broad topic. So
it'd be probably be good to explain what you guys go through, like when you enter into a location.
Woo. That's a whole presentation in itself.
Yeah. You want to go first, or you want like me to go first?
Go ahead.
Well, as an individual gifted medium, the first step I do is always protect myself, and then I go in and I'll actually walk the property and ask permission for me to communicate with those that want to communicate with me. And I get a sense of what's going on, who's there that we don't want there, if you will. Dave does a similar thing. You can go more into that, but once we connected with the property, at least when I'm connected with the property, I can start getting answers. They may not be all the same answers to the questions that either the client has, or even perhaps that Dave is getting answers to. It's often that we do not get the same answers. That's typically how David and I work. We both are working on the same puzzle. I may do the outside and Dave fills in the middle, or vice versa. And throughout the night that we're investigating, we start putting the puzzle together. Psychic phenomenon that I've experienced, well, they range. I've been pushed, attacked, visited. The list goes on. I'm trying to think of a specific, other than Windsor, that I can talk about. And it's, again, there's a lot that happens.
Frank, I'll get to your question in a second too. But to answer my side for Bonnie, I think that when a person that is a psychic or classifies himself as a psychic, which Chris and I both don't even like to do, the word just has such a negative kind of connotation to it. Like Chris, for example, sees spirits more than I do. I tend to feel things more than Chris does. So that's kind of how we work. He'll kind of see the image. I'll kind of get the emotions surrounding that image, and then we put it together, and that's how we get the story. Yeah, I mean, for me as an empath, I don't really view the definition in the same way that the New Age movement technically does. I believe it's more of when you feel things literally. I could walk into a building, and if someone was shot in that building, I will literally feel that pain in that particular area of my body. But it's more than that. I'm also able to interpret that information as, yeah, somebody was shot in the abdomen or whatever. And so I'm able to know information that was previously unknown. That's the difference.
And that's a good segue to Frank's question.
So how does one know and test scientifically that a person is an empath or a medium? Part of my research in the paranormal is that a lot of these findings cannot be proven by scientific method. And you are correct. Unfortunately, science likes repeatable data. And when you're dealing with the paranormal, you can ask for a response, or you can say, hey, if there's someone here, can you knock on the wall twice for yes? And you'll hear a knock on the wall twice for yes, and then you can try it again and you're not going to get a knock. So there's all types of like probabilities and things that scientists use to try to debunk the paranormal as an actual thing. I know that there's been research that's been done on people who claim to be psychic mediums, and they hooked up, I believe, these people up to an ECG to measure the electrical activity in their brains. And they found that whenever a medium or a psychic was reading or communicating with the other side, that their centers for imagination lit up in their brain. Now, they use this as a way to basically say that mediums are full of it. They're just literally imagining things. And I guess my response to that would be, well, how else is it supposed to work? Clearly, when you think of anything and you're thinking of a vision, you're using that part of your brain. So I think that's just the filter through which it works. But so obviously you're going to use that part of your brain. But there's really no way that scientifically they actually work with each other. You start getting into the physics of it, it gets more complicated with Faraday cage experiments, and they know specifically that the way telepathy might work, it doesn't work through electromagnetic waves, for example. There's a whole thing that it goes into, but I'm not going to get into that here.
Well, I can give an objective example of Chris's mediumship, and it comes from one of the investigations that we did in South Windsor. And in this investigation, the people that lived in that house were experiencing, basically shadow figures outside, and also nightmares about a tall figure with a bolo tie and a brimmed hat as well. And so usually, like we said in the beginning, Ruby and I go in there and ask about all the claims and confirm all the claims. And Chris and David don't know anything about any of those claims. And we're sitting in there doing a spirit box session. And Chris often, either writes on his notepad that he has, or he starts drawing. And in that situation, he started drawing, and we didn't see what he was drawing. But at the end of the spirit box session, we asked him what he was drawing. He turned it around, and it was the exact image that one of the people had been imagining in their mind of the guy in the bolo tie with the wide brim hat, very tall. So that's not scientific, but it's a real life example of when, these claims and Chris's abilities converge.
I think that's probably the closest, and it's not very closest you can get to a scientific pathway. But again, it's far from close.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I guess from a scientific perspective, it's unfortunate, but you do have to have a degree of faith to kind of be in this field. You just have to do your best to kind of avoid that confirmation bias. Just because you believe in something, you can't search for that to validate your own answers. You have to be really objective and unbiased, or as much as possible. But yeah, there's just too many instances where Chris or myself will come up with names of people that lived in a house from the 1700s or the 1800s, and how they died. And then when we go back and look at the records, it matches to a T, and there's just no way. And of course, people say, oh, you guys knew that beforehand, but amongst us and the clients, we know and they know. Chris and I don't know anything going in.
I often don't even know the address. I'm following someone through the home. I mean, in the instance with the Southington Library, I've been there twice before, so we know where that was.
Right.
I want to touch on Sandy's question. Are the spirits free to come and go? Are they stuck inside the library? Mainly, no spirit is stuck anywhere. They have the free will, just as we have the free will on this side to travel as well. In fact, I was speaking, I cannot remember which one was Lynn or Billy, but I gave one of them the message that let Mark's mother and sister know that he visits them as well. So I hope the message was conveyed. I'm not sure. But so in this, the psychic answer to your question, Sandy, is they have the same ability to move about. There are mediums out there, or other psychics that say that spirits are bound to a certain location. I don't always believe in that form of thinking. Those mediums are typically been taught, either self-taught or classroom taught, how to be a medium.
Certified.
certified mediums, in which I'm not. As everybody should know by now, I've been a medium for 55 years. So I don't believe any one spirit can be stuck. Mark may visit the library often because Lynn and Billy and other staff employees enjoyed his company. Kurt visits the library to aggravate the staff, as he did as when he worked there. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of
theories.
we're not the team that believes so much in portals, for example. We hear that a lot. People come in and you have a portal and it's always in the closet for some reason, you know. It's interesting, but saying there's a portal somewhere in a space and that's where the spirits or the demons are coming through doesn't even match what we know about physics at all. In physics, actually, they believe wormholes are extremely, extremely small. You would never be able to see them, and they exist literally everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So it doesn't really make sense that there would be like a giant portal and they're always seemingly in a closet or something. Ruby, you got a question. Have you gotten some interesting pictures of anything in this case or previous?
Well, I take hundreds of pictures every case. As much as I wish that there was something in them that I couldn't explain, I have not yet taken a picture of anything that I couldn't explain away. There have been a few close calls, but I've always been able to figure out what it was. I know my equipment really well. I know the dynamics of photography quite well. And I also take measures in the moment to allow myself ways to debunk if I do see something weird later on. That's really important to review your photos as you're going through the investigation. So if you see something, you can address it right away in the same conditions. So not yet, but maybe someday.
Yeah, we get a lot of people sending us pictures, videos of orbs, you name it. Literally probably 100% of the time we debunk them as lens flares, light refraction, dust, insects, moisture droplets. When you put a camera in a basement and you walk around, you're stirring up dust no matter how clean it is, and that camera will catch that dust. There's a principle in psychology called Occam's razor. It literally just means the simplest answer is usually the right one. So if it could be dust, it probably is. Yep, I remember what you sent us, Frank. We always appreciate people reaching out and inquiring about it. How they react is another question. Some people take it well and they legitimately want to know if it's paranormal or not. And other people, we will give them our opinion and they will just think what they want anyway, and that's fine. If you want to think it's paranormal, you think it's paranormal. But we're not going to say it is when we don't think it is. Good questions so far, though. Has anything followed you home from an investigation? Oh no, my fiance is watching. I can't answer this one. No, we were on a case. I
can say yes.
Right. This was before Ruby and Eli actually were on the team. We had a case that we were on in Windsor that lasted over a year. It was a demonic case, and I wouldn't say it followed me. I definitely there was a week where I had the same dream over and over, but it was like different entities were attacking me every night. I've had things, I had my stuff fall off my shelves during that case. So I definitely had something trying to intimidate me, but I don't think it necessarily followed me or attached me. I think Chris had a situation with a case in Danielson, Connecticut. If you want to elaborate on that, Chris.
I do. Again, um, part of my abilities is to travel. As I go on a journey. And in this particular case, I journeyed to a field where there definitely was a malevolent / demonic presence there. That's primarily why we were at the case. Went through my journey. Dave brought me back. The next day, 2 or 3 days later, I was miserable. I was cranky. I was snapping at everybody. There was no reason for me to be angry. I'm generally a happy guy. My wife was wondering what was going on. And then at one point, I'm like, if there's something here with me, I'm going to, you're gone. So I said the Lord's Prayer. I said, Lord, protect me. Banish this entity from my surroundings. And lo and behold, as you will, the skies open and the sun shined. Not literally, but after I said the Lord's Prayer and asked for God to assist in my removal of this entity, I felt much better and my mood changed. That being said, it was all part of the plan, if you will, because when we went back, the client stated that their home felt better. They were not having nearly as much activity. The daughter who was involved in the case was feeling much better. So although I went into the case protected, I think I was a tool for God to remove this entity from the home and then release it when I was far enough away from home with God's help. So that's just, that's probably the one big instance that I have where, yes, I took something home with me, but I think it was part of the plan.
Yeah, I mean, we go through pretty great lengths to make sure nothing does attach to us, doesn't bother our friends, our family, the team members. So we each kind of do our own individual process, but then when we get together, Chris and I in particular will connect to each other. We kind of put a bubble, if you will, around the entire team, and we make sure that nothing is allowed to touch us or follow us. And we mean it with 100% intent that that's not going to happen. And just by having that conviction, it usually doesn't. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it usually doesn't.
And every time, I know, at least for me, every time I leave a case and I'm driving home in my car, it sounds crazy, but I always say, if anything is in here with me, you're not allowed to follow me home. So just saying that, having that intent like they're talking about, is always another protective measure that we use.
Right. And I mean, I was on a case, the Windsor case that we were on for over a year. The first time I actually went out there by myself with this other investigator for the first time, just to see kind of what was going on. And on my way home, I'm driving in the left lane on the highway and my tire blew out. And the mechanic said it was like a slash mark, like someone took a knife and just slashed right in the side of my tire. He didn't think it was a puncture from running over a nail or anything. He said it looked like a knife, but so I don't know. I mean, it could be coincidence, but it's the only time my tire has ever blown out, and it was right after visiting our first demonic case. So that was just kind of weird. So now it's like I do exactly what Eli does, which is like, if anything's here, leave. Brady, how many cases per year roughly do you get? Well, with COVID, not too many this year. I think we had maybe 15, 16 this year. In terms of I think we probably I think at our busiest, we probably took almost 50 cases in a year, but we get a lot more inquiries than we get actual cases. I mean, I probably have at least 3 emails a day of people asking for investigations from all over the country, or asking to send us pictures, videos. stuff like that. So it really varies. Of course, it picks up in October because it's spooky season and Halloween. And no, activity doesn't necessarily pick up in October. It's just,
Actually, that's probably our least, I mean, not least, but it's not our busiest time.
right.
Usually May, June.
Yeah. May, June are really busy for some reason. Usually we don't usually investigate too much around Christmas time, the holidays and everything. That's when we kind of take a break. But then second week of January, third week of January, things start picking right back up. Everyone's over the holidays and it's right back to it.
And we thought, and I think it did, COVID kind of created a different environment where we did get a lot more inquiries that we could debunk from our laptops. One where we made a policy that we weren't going to go out. So we had to do like many people do, work from home and try to debunk as much as we can. With COVID, many people are home. Many people are observing different things going on in their house and discovered that, wait a minute, I don't ever remember hearing this before. The primary reason is that they're home more often. So we do a lot of spiritual counseling too, particularly David and I. And well, we either will go to the client's home, or we meet at a Dunkin' Donuts or coffee shop, and through COVID is on the phone or through Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably spend at least 25 hours a week doing paranormal related things, and that's all. Right. The segue right into the question, Frank. It feels like a full-time job, but no, we do not get paid for this at all. I probably spend personally probably about 25 hours a week doing this: emails, phone calls, writing reports, listening to evidence review, just researching general, stuff for the team, setting up presentations, things like that. Feels almost like a full-time job, but we do not get paid at all for this.
And for the most part, it's we take it as a second job, I guess, if you will. All four of us enjoy it. If I'm speaking for all four of us, but all four of us enjoy it. One, we enjoy the camaraderie the four of us have when we do get together. We have a good time. We all like each other. We get along. We laugh. We are able to read each other, and nobody gets offended. But when it comes right down to it, when it's time for business, Eli's spot on with his, doing his research. Ruby is like the most phenomenal photographer you'll ever come across.
She gets the left side of me.
Dave, he's okay, but we all get along. I mean, we have fun, and I think that's and we enjoy helping people. So, that's it's Dave. Dave, I, and our team, we're passionate about that. Actually, is one of the prerequisites for coming upon a team, is that Dave and I will make sure that the passion is there.
Yeah, we actually, before we bring on new members at all, we kind of intern them. So you have to investigate with us for, anywhere from 4 to 6 months, just to kind of see if you're actually in it. I mean, actions speak louder than words. So you can tell us that you're super interested in the paranormal and you want to do this, but we literally talk almost all day, every day in a group chat about the paranormal and about different things. And, oh, did you call that person back? What's going on with this person? Can you update this? And we're always going back and forth. Also, everyone wants to be a paranormal investigator, but no one wants to sit there for 4 hours a night listening to dead air from an investigation recording. So patience is a must. I know Ruby kind of jokes around, or maybe not, but she probably feels like we interned her for like a full year before we actually let her on the team. So she's always like, why were you guys so hard on me? But we want to make sure that you're invested.
It wasn't a full year.
No.
But
But
it's true. I mean, and we have to kind of hold back the reins, because when Ruby did come to us, we're like, oh, photographer. I mean, and she has a degree in psychology. This is the kind of the person that we want. But
just couldn't let her know it.
No, not at first. We couldn't let her know it. But we had to make sure that, okay, Ruby, we have, 24 hours of evidence that we have to review. Can you take a portion of it? And she did it without complaining, at least to me. But again, people who say, oh, I want to be a paranormal investigator, but it's tedious. First of all, going on an investigation, it's, as you can imagine, is nothing like the television show. Absolutely nothing. You are sitting in the dark, asking questions in the air, hoping to get a audible response, at least on the recorder, but you'd like to hear it in person. You'd like to be able to, you walk into a residence or a building with hopes that you're going to see the apparition, and Ruby does get a picture of that apparition, and you have all these hopes, and then when you're sitting down or at the end of the night, well, that didn't go, we didn't get what I came here for, or I hope Ruby captured something on film, and hope he captured something on recording. And then we go back home after Dave uploads it, and we listen, and again with anticipation, like, are we going to hear something? And then after 4 45-minute clips of watching a video of dust orbs flying about, we got nothing.
Right.
And it's so there's that frustration level. The reason why we keep doing it is that because we know we have been selected. The reason why the 4 of us have been put together in a very successful team, we all enjoy doing it, and we know we're here to help those that need it.
I think the other part of it too, of investigating, is what people don't realize is you have to have a level of fearlessness when you're going into a house that's purportedly haunted. I know there was an investigation like 3 or 4 investigations ago that we did in Fairfield where one, I had to sit in a dusty attic by myself in the dark. They closed the door on me, and I was in there, for 30, 40 minutes. And I volunteered to do that because
throwing us under the bus. What is going on?
You want to get the best evidence. And also, in that same investigation, Chris and I went into the basement, and there was nothing happening. And we went up the stairs, and we tried to open the door, and we were locked in the basement. Something physically locked us into that basement. Turn the actual key in there, and we were locked in. We had to call Dave and Ruby while they were capturing stuff in the attic. So
it was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the locked up in the attic part, that was part of Eli's initiation.
Yeah.
I volunteered to do that, actually. So.
But there's like 90% of the time you can debunk things and nothing really happens, or nothing really exciting happens, but it's that 10% that really keeps you going. It's not really about the evidence. It's not about the thrill. It's about helping people. And that's really what we do. Jim asks, have you guys ever collaborated with the Warrens or any other paranormal societies? So yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, all right. So
yes, to the second.
Yeah, the Warrens, I've met them. I actually know one of the members on the team. I guess I have my own opinions on a lot of teams that I'm not going to really state, but We actually took over a couple cases from the Warrens, actually, and some other teams that were trying to help families. The Windsor case, for example, that we were talking about for over a year. Another pretty well-known team in Connecticut was on that case before us, and they weren't, I guess, doing the job. So we got the case instead. It's kind of a unfortunate thing, I think. Chris, you'd probably agree with me. A lot of teams aren't willing to work with other teams. Because I think the paranormal field is so closely tied to religion and just people's individual beliefs. You know, if I tell you I don't
And
think,
very large egos.
yeah, if I tell you I don't think portals are a thing, I'm telling you because the science doesn't dictate that that's probably what's happening. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's probably not happening. But then if you choose to take that information and say, well, I'm going to believe in them anyway, that's your prerogative. But you can't really work together when you aren't.
Many of them are insulted when
Right.
you
There's a
challenge
couple-
their beliefs.
There's a couple teams that we feel like we could definitely work with or refer to if necessary, and vice versa. But for the most part, there's a lot of ego. There's a lot of, frankly, bullshit out there, fraudulence. People saying we've had clients pay people thousands of dollars to other teams to say that they're doing energy work from another country. In other words, this guy's probably sitting in a jacuzzi saying he's doing energy work to get rid of your demons in Connecticut. And he's, you know, it's, if you believe it, great, but $3,000 to have someone send you energy from Canada is not the way to do things, we don't think.
You know, even as gifted, you know, gifted medium and empath, we still rely on scientific proof. And many of the paranormal members, team members out there, they can't put those two together. How can you be scientific and still be a medium? There's no science to medium. And my answer to them is you're absolutely correct. But if I go into a house, say I went into the library and I said, you know, Lynn and Billy, the portal is in the boiler room. We need to go in there with black salt and sage and Palo Santo and clear the area. And once we do all that, your library will be clear of spirits. Okay, I could say that. I would never, but I could say that. And then a week later, they're still having activity. So, and in between, I asked them for $1,000 and they paid it. Now, how does that, I mean, that's being sneaky or being a shyster, you know, you just can't do that kind of stuff. So that's why Dave and I heavily rely in the team on science to give to our clients evidence. And again, we would never charge. We don't charge for investigations. We don't charge for spiritual counseling. We rely on libraries and other organizations for donations to continue our passion and continue helping other people. So going back to the egos of many, I've worked with many paranormal teams. Before Dave and I formed this team, I was on others and I consulted with a lot of many teams, and the amount of ego that the teams have was crazy. And now if I were to go back and search those paranormal societies, you'll find website not found.
Right. Yeah, a lot of teams claim to be scientific too because they use EMF meters and cameras, and you know that doesn't make you scientific. You know, one of the kind of inside jokes on the team is because I always ask this question, I'm like, well, what is a ghost? I mean, scientifically, tell me what a ghost is. And you can't. We don't have a scientific definition for what it is, what it's made of. Most people just say energy. Yeah, but what type of energy? Where does it come from? So you can't say technically that your EMF meter is detecting a ghost because we have no definition for what a ghost even is. So, you know, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I haven't personally seen a lot of teams with members that have specific roles. I've seen some with photographers, but not many people have actual formal degrees in the sciences. And I think that's super important because the more you know, the more likely you are to actually find legitimate paranormal activity. I mean, just the word paranormal alone means beyond normal. So like when we get a lot of the orb footage sent to us from people, it would be incredibly rare to actually capture something that was beyond normal. Bonnie asked a question. Do you see more examples of negative energies or positive ones?
I would say we see more positive than negative. Going back to say, if you want to look at negative and malevolent, we categorize negative energy into 3 categories. There's malevolent human spirit, somebody who was a jerk when they were alive and they turned to be a jerk on the other side. We have human. The second category is a human that is being manipulated by a non-human negative energy, and then the third case, something that is non-human, demonic, if you will, that is causing the paranormal activity. Those cases are less than 1% of all the cases recorded. For us, it seems, I mean, we happen to get 2 in 5 years, maybe 3. The one in Milford is kind of a questionable. Was there some malevolence? But so in my experience, and I think for the experience of our team, is we've come across more positive, or we call them more benign entities than negative entities.
Yeah, and it's I guess it's not really funny, but it's funny how I would say 80% of the people that reach out to us, it's usually all I'm possessed by demons, I have demons in my home. Like, that's because of Hollywood, that's what everyone jumps immediately to, is the worst possible case scenario. And like Chris said, it's less than 1% that actually happens. Yeah, absolutely. What exactly is spiritual counseling? So what exactly is spiritual counseling? More or less, it's, for example, I was out in Wallingford last night. We had a former client of ours. We investigated her house 2 years ago and she has 2 teenage daughters, and one of the daughters is questioning God or questioning religion, going through that phase where she's having doubts. And so we go out there, one of us will go out there and just kind of talk and just kind of see where they're at, and if we can kind of get them thinking more positive. It's we make it very clear that we are not psychologists, we are not mental health counselors, but sometimes for people it just helps to talk to someone who's kind of in the field of spirits and spirituality and religion, who's seen things. Like, as a person of science that I consider myself to be, I've definitely seen things that I cannot explain by any means necessary. So sometimes just talking to someone like that is helpful for people. You know, other cases where people think they have attachments, and usually Chris and myself can confirm one way or another if your energy is off, or if you do have an attachment of some kind, good or bad. Or maybe it's just you have an attachment, or it's just a spirit guide though, and it's deceased family member trying to give you a message. And that way Chris will usually be able to get that message and help them out.
There's times when I work with children who are either going through what psychokinesis or a PK episode, which is a precursor to poltergeist activity, where they may have abilities, they don't understand what's going on. I was fortunate, I had a mom who was able to counsel me throughout the years. Many of these children don't have parents like I had with my mom. So doing both of them, the child and the parent, this is how you help your child. Those are some, another example of the spiritual counseling. Again, with older people, or not, I say older, adult people who think they have some type of an ability, and they'll either want to know if they're an empath or if they have, if they're a medium, what what degree of mediumship do they have? So these are some forms of spiritual counseling. It's where Dave did the other night was a little bit beyond our scope, but he was incredibly helpful to the two young girls and their mother. So it was turned out to be a positive experience for both Dave and the family.
Yeah, because that all comes down to just helping people. So if we can do that in a positive way, then we'll do it. Lynn
Good
asked,
question, Lynn.
do the spirits in the library interact with one another, or do they exist on separate planes? You want to go first? Do you want me to go?
I would say, in the library's instance, I felt Mark kept Kurt in line, as he did in when they both were alive. From my explanation from either you, Lynn, or Billy, that Mark made what's the word I'm looking for? He took steps to make sure that Kurt didn't bother him. So now I think he does the same for the library. As far as Kurt and Mark and the children, I don't think they interact. I believe the children are residual, and they're going to keep doing what they do, with or without Mark's knowledge.
Right. And in terms of where they exist on separate planes, in theory, spirits exist in the astral plane. So if you've ever heard of astral projection, where you kind of have this out of body experience and you're kind of in another world, that's supposedly where spirits exist, and they kind of slip through the veil, pass along a message and then go right back. That kind of makes the most sense with our experience, I think, but also with science. I know it's just a slide picture, but have you guys actually had any luck with Ouija boards, or are they just a toy? Good question.
Oh, we all love this question, don't we?
I love this question. So we don't really buy into Ouija boards. I had one in the trunk of my car for like a year, for example, and I never got in any accidents or anything. We actually used one 3 times maybe.
In Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn, we used it in Hebron and Danielson. So we actually used it on a demonic case, and it didn't do anything at all. I'll get to that in a second, Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way we think of it, and Chris will say the same thing. It's an antiquated communication device. and back then they didn't have the technology we have, so they wrote letters on a piece of paper and used the planchette and moved it around and to communicate with spirits, because they believed that the spirits would, communicate through them, channel into them, and then move the planchette. We now know that that's called the ideomotor effect, the psychological term. You basically answer your own questions subconsciously, so you're not even aware of it. You think a spirit's doing it, but it's just you. There's no difference between using the Ouija board than sitting in a room with an audio recorder and asking something to give you a sign, or is someone here? There's no difference whatsoever. There's a lot of horror stories out there with the Ouija board, but in our experience, it's all more or less in your head.
Yeah, in those horror cases, they could have been true to them, but the likelihood, it raises a degree of skepticism that's unmatched. Anytime you ask a spirit, if you will, to do something or answer you, you are throwing a question out into the universe. We've yet to even as psychics have 100% ability to know that, hey, when we Aunt Joan, can you knock on the wall? And we get a knock on the wall, do we know it with 100% certainty is Aunt Joan? So you always have that risk. And it's the same thing with the Ouija board, same thing with, our recorder or spirit box. Again, I'm going to reiterate, the Ouija board is just an antiquated communication device that is now just a toy.
And as far as why we'd think to use it, we used it in a case in Hebron, Connecticut, for example, because they believed that it was the cause of some of their activity. So we tried to recreate that activity by using a Ouija board. We had a couple people tell us we were absolutely crazy for doing that, and nothing happened at all. It was quite boring. We used it in a couple other cases just to kind of see if it worked. And in the 3 times we really used it, it did not. Chris, is automatic writing also you answering yourself?
For me, no. And I'm going to sound, I'm pretty confident. When I'm doing automatic writing, I am entering a very deep meditative state, where I've asked guidance from spirits to, answer into my hand. So when I write down answers or statements, they almost always, and I would say pretty close, 99% of them are answering a question pertaining to the case. Many times, Dave will ask a question during a recording session that he has no knowledge of the answer. I will write down the answer. Eli or Ruby may confirm the answer. And so for me, no, it's not answering my own call. I don't know how best to explain it. It's just, I guess the team can verify or validate where I am when I'm in our automatic writing state. But me as the person, I'm not there within the space. Fair statement?
Yeah, he's basically like somewhere else. He's in such a deep meditation that, like, if you called his name, he wouldn't respond. He's just gone. But he's writing, and then some of the stuff that he comes up with, it's like, how the hell did you know that? Hope that answers that question. What are your thoughts on exorcism? Good question. I just wrote an entire blog on exorcism, Frank. So if you go to our website actually and you want to really read it, be thorough.
Funny, Lynn.
Exorcism Fact or Fiction is the name of the blog. Check it out. Exorcism is actually a very complicated procedure. It's not like the movies where you have to get a Catholic priest to come in and throw around the holy water and, you know, Christ compels you and that whole spiel. It depends on your belief system. You have to take into consideration the clients, everything about them, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, all of it. You have to take everything into consideration. It's a deeply personal experience that usually, I guess metaphorically, helps them rid themselves of their demons, their personal demons. A lot of people who require exorcisms have been through significant trauma in their lives, abuse of some kind, PTSD from war, things like that. But a true exorcist has to be completely objective, I would say. A Catholic priest is going to be mainly beneficial for someone who's Catholic or Christian of some kind. But there's people who are Hindu that need exorcisms. There's people that are atheists or pagans. So a Catholic priest probably won't work on them, but a true exorcist kind of understands the umbrella of all the belief systems and then takes the client into account on an individual level to expel entities. But definitely read the blog because that's really going to answer your question, hopefully in a satisfying way. Is there any recommended place or website to share experiences and read what happens to others? And you're welcome, Frank.
EasternCTParanormal.com.
Yeah, like, yeah, I mean, there's Facebook groups out there, there's forums and stuff you can go on. It's just hard to kind of weed through the people that are kind of out there, I would say, versus people that want to give you actual factual information and experiences and actually discuss it in a educational way. There's a lot of stories. So if you're into stories, then you could just go on like Reddit or something and people sharing all kinds of crazy stuff. But if you want like something that's more academic and more sustainable in the real world, just read our blogs. We post them every month, sometimes twice a month.
Bonnie, we have case studies on our website that are pretty fascinating.
They also took a very long time to write, so please read those, guys. Good questions, though. This is good.
No, you didn't see anything?
Actively, no, but we've investigated the Barnes. We were the only team ever to investigate the Barnes Museum. That was an awesome experience to be able to do that twice, once on Halloween. We investigated the Barnes Museum twice. We investigated the old South End schoolhouse, which was awesome. Chris can actually tell you an experience from there. And we did the Historical Society and the library.
The old schoolhouse was crazy. I mean, for me at least, I'm sitting in the back of the schoolhouse and I get a vision of this young girl, 8, 9, 10, sitting diagonally across from me in front of the class. She has like what I'll refer to as polio braces on, leg braces, and she's asking for help. So I asked David, David, could you walk over there? There's a little girl over there is asking for help. Could you go over there and ask help? He kneels down and says, can I help you? Or can I help you? And you hear a response. Now this was an EVP, not through Spirit Box, I believe, right? You're on mute.
It was a full EVP.
Yeah. This little girl says, can you help me? And for me, it's instant gratification, validation of my abilities. But the fact that we caught it on audio was astounding. That was probably the most exciting thing that happened that night.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like an idiot because he's like, just go over there. There's a little girl that needs your help, and I'm like, okay. There's no one sitting there, so I go over and kneel down, and I'm like, do you need any help? I'm talking to an empty desk, and then sure enough, we got a response. So it was pretty crazy to listen to it afterward.
What's really fun is that you're sitting in, for me, I'm sitting in my living room in the dark with my headphones on, and I get this response, and I'm like, I stand up, jump up and down. I'm so excited. I'm like, it's great.
I know the infamous house in Southington that The Haunting in Connecticut was based on, that the Warrens supposedly said was like one of the most demonic houses ever. Like right down the street from the library there. Like I would love to get in there, but supposedly there's no activity anymore, according to the new owners. But that would be another Southington case that I would be interested in trying to debunk.
That was a pretty subtle hint to all of the Southington audience.
You like that? Yeah.
Anywhere, we, as you can, we enjoy. She's going to ask about it.
Yep.
Are you up for that, Ruby?
Sure.
I think it would be awesome. But we often rely on word of mouth from our audience, from presentations, to refer us to other places. We really we love doing residentials, but we also would love to do more historical buildings or businesses, libraries, areas like that. Definitely to change up our and add to our portfolio, excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these TV shows, they can get into pretty much anywhere because they have money from the production companies to basically go anywhere they want. But a lot of the times the TV shows, they they say they spend one night there. Really, they spend like a week there, and they're sleeping in their trailers with comfortable with heat, and then their production crew is going through all the evidence for them, and it's nice and convenient. They also fake a lot of evidence. That is a fact. So it would be great for us to get into some of these more well-known places. That's actually one of our goals, is to get well enough known where we can get into some of those places because people trust us.
Lynn, do you have a hospital you would like us to investigate?
But
I've heard of the hospital in Southington. Who was telling us about this? Was it you, Lynn? There's part, right? Yeah, right next to the library. There's part of the hospital that, the older part, I guess. Is that what? Where there's reports of activities. Hey, Lynn, if you have a person that can get us in there, we're in. And we, as you know, will be very respectful to everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, too, a lot of I'm gonna call them amateur investigators. People that wake up and decide they're gonna form a paranormal team just because they can. They've ruined it for a lot of the more professional people, because now you can't get in at all to a lot of these places because the owners don't want you because of vandalism and
You'll be my
littering.
biggest fan, Lynn.
Yeah, Lynn, that would be awesome. I would be so on board for that.
I think the closest I've come to a hospital is walking the grounds of the Norwich State Hospital. They don't like. No.
What, you ending us, Eli? What's going on?
Oh, we got kicked out.
Cutting us off.
Oh no.
I've actually investigated a hospital. There's this really reportedly haunted hospital named Waverly Hills in Kentucky. That's on every sort of countdown list of the most haunted places in the United States. And I actually went there for a whole night, from dusk until dawn, and there really wasn't a lot going on. And that's the thing that people think when you go to a really purportedly haunted location, that there's going to be activity every single night, but it doesn't happen like that.
Right. Would you do another lecture if you do go to that hospital in Southington? Yeah, as long as the library will have us back. We will always do presentations on our findings. Southington has been great to us. Really though, just the fact that we've presented twice before at the library, and now we got to investigate and then present on our findings. It's a lot of fun for us. So definitely. Are there any particular social media platforms we could follow you on? Yes. The next slide does show some of them. Our website has links to all of them as well. But Facebook, if after the presentation you guys enjoyed what we talked about today, reviews go a long way on Facebook. We do have some trolls that like to try to bring our rating down, who we've never even met before, just because they don't believe in the paranormal. So positive reviews definitely help. And then we have Instagram, we have a Twitter, we do have a YouTube channel that hopefully will be up soon. Hint, hint, maybe some podcasts in the future, hint, hint. So we do have a lot of social media platforms you could follow us on. How about the Undercliff Sanatorium in Meredith?
We tried that, didn't we?
Thank you for appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, of course. Undercliff, I've only went to the grounds there briefly. I have friends that like broke in, and a lot of people do that because it's abandoned. They'll just go in through like a window and walk around. We cannot do that because we're a professional group and we don't want any trespassing charges, and we have to, we need permission to go into places. So even cemeteries, most close at night. You can't go in there without permission. So if we were to do a cemetery, we have to call the police department and let them know we're going to be coming in and if it's okay. And then usually we have to give them our information for each of us, and they kind of monitor you by driving by the whole night. So Fairfield Hills, Newtown. I have not done Fairfield Hills.
No. Any one of these places, if there's a contact out there that you can get us in, we would greatly appreciate it. We might even take you as a guest investigator as a reward. We've been wanting to get into Undercliff.
Yeah. And again, usually they're state properties, so they're hard to get into without, again, like a production crew backing you.
We attempted to get into old Newgate Prison. Many paranormal teams have gone there. I thought we could go in there and do it. They want to charge paranormal teams $300 for, I think, 2 hours worth of paranormal time.
Right.
And it's just not worth $300. That's one reason why we don't charge, is that we don't charge, because if we don't find anything, then either the client or us are out, definitely out of money. And the same thing goes with the $300 for the old Newgate Prison. If we went in there and paid $300 and it was bust, we would definitely feel slighted that we're out $300.
Yeah, and going back to our goal on that, we would love to get to a place where we're invited in. We want to be known as the team to go to when you got paranormal problems, or you just want to figure out, hey, is the spirit of grandma here? We want to help people get those answers, but it's not worth paying $300 to go for our own curiosity. Again, it's just a thrill thing, and people can make money off of it, so they do it. The Conjuring House is another one that I think the Warrens were just out there again. They've been running with that house since the 70s. Where's all the evidence since the 70s? I don't know. 50 years later, and I don't see any new stuff coming out.
Dave, all the evidence is in Hollywood.
Exactly. So they're still running off the 70s. Teams go in there, they'll pay money to go in there and investigate the house just because of its, its aura, I guess. But we're not.
Same thing with the Lizzie Borden house.
Yep.
The Lizzie Borden house is $1,500. That's a lot of money. I mean, we paid to stay at Captain Grant's, but we also we had the whole place to ourselves.
And we got breakfast.
The Lizzie Borden, I believe, is it still operating as a bed and breakfast?
It is. I actually stayed there 2 years ago. And it was basically, it's like a regular bed and breakfast. You pay like $250 a night. But you stay there, you don't get the whole place to yourself. If you want the whole place to yourself, it's like $3,000 for the night.
Donations welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
oh my God. Yeah, so that's how we feel about some of those places.
So it's just about 7:30 or after, or it's 7:49. Are there any other questions out there?
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes.
So if anybody in the audience would like private or a personal chat with either myself or with, I'm just going to offer my own services. You certainly can contact me through Facebook or our website.
Thank you, Frank. We appreciate you coming by.
I hope that if you have questions, I can answer them. Again, if anybody who needs our services, we again have them reach out to our Facebook page or our website. We're happy to help.
Would a copy of your investigation be available? Like the reports? The reports pretty much go right up on our website. So they're kind of public domain. We write them and then we give the client a copy that has full names and stuff in them. And then we take the names out for confidentiality and we put them on the website. So yeah, everything is available there. The only thing that's not available right now are the actual audio files and video clips that we collect. We revamped the website back in June, and it's going to take a long time to put all that evidence up and link it to another platform. So it's going to come in the future. I just don't know when. Thank you, Lynn. We really appreciate that. We loved the opportunity to come in and investigate the library and work with you all.
Definitely thank you for your hospitality.
Yeah.
You and Dudley were wonderful. I hope we didn't scare you too much.
Yeah.
I want to thank the team for coming out and investigating and, taking such good care of our girls. Another wonderful experience from your team. Thank you. Thank you
You're
so
very
much.
welcome.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, thank you, Jim. Appreciate you coming by. If there's no more questions, Liz, you can feel free to call it. If you guys need us again at all, please reach out to us on our website. Our website has all the social media links and everything too. So if you need to contact any one of us individually or you require our services, please let us know. Or if you can get us in somewhere, that's good too.
I'm already thinking about stuff.
Bet you are. I bet you are. Thanks, Liz. What do you know in the hospital?
I don't know anybody in the hospital, but I'm thinking about a really old restaurant in Southington. It used to be called the Old Mill. It was built in the 1700s, and now it's called the New Mill. So it's been around for a real long time. A lot of crazy stuff happened in that place, I'm sure. So I know the owner, so maybe I could reach out and see what I can do.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, we're available next Thursday. No, I'm kidding.
They have great food, Chris, great food.
Always good to know. Kelly, thank you so much. Yeah, we're looking to get these podcasts up and running. Chris and I were just talking today about getting something started where we're going to talk about all of our cases. We're just going to go, I think let's just go case by case, really delve into all like the good details of it. We're probably going to be interviewing some other people in the paranormal community as well, talking to some scientists, maybe some doctors, things like that, kind of get a lot of different viewpoints with a no bullshit perspective. Definitely will. It'll be announced on everything that we have, believe me. But thank you.
Yeah, that's true.
New Mill is right down the street from the schoolhouse. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Right.
So I'll look into that and I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. That sounds wonderful.
Thank you so much again, guys.
You're welcome. You have a wonderful evening then.
You too.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.